What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 43rd, 44th? I don't know when last night's episode was. Probably 43rd. That's probably the 43rd episode of Wise Guys Hideaway. I actually did this episode yesterday, and so did Casey. David's joining us today. He wasn't here yesterday, but yeah, me and Casey did this yesterday, and he was nice enough to give it to me a second time because apparently me and Zoom just don't click yet. It's not like me and Anchor. So yeah, I mean, today we're gonna talk Frank Costello. I mean, we're gonna go down the rabbit hole on all sorts of shit, I'm sure. Sure, it's not just going to be about Frank Costello. I promise you, it's not just going to be about Frank Costello. But first, we'll do a round table. Everybody give their shout outs. Everybody say their pieces. And yeah, when it gets back to me, I'll piss away my turn again.
After you, Casey.
Well, shout out to the National Crime Syndicate and Craig Timmons out there. He's a great guy. Got a good thing going there. And also, I guess, a shout out to Gary Jenkins over at Gangland Wire. He's been real good to me, and he also has a lot going on. So if you're interested in this stuff, definitely check him out. And shout out to Michael Mafucci too. I forgot to do that yesterday. He helps me with Uncle Frank's place immensely. So
he's on the episode. He's like, the fuck, bro.
So I'm glad I got a chance to make that up anyway. So
many people. I'm so happy for doing this again.
I'm actually glad you brought out Gary Jenkins as well, because this is it was with Gary that I first started doing video calls.
Yeah, I watched all those. Those were great.
Gary, they come out all right. Actually, they were in the very early days, so I got quite a bit used to it more these days. So I want to give a shout out, of course, National Crime Syndicate, Casey's very own Uncle Frank's place. If you don't know what it is, it's obviously a place where you go to talk about Frank Costello. And it's online. You're on Facebook and Instagram, I believe, Casey.
That's correct, yeah.
And of course, I want to give a shout out to my guys over at Gangster Profile and Bad Guy Podcast, and a big shout out to Mob King, Ciro DiPaggio. Ian, over to you, brother.
Oh yeah, I'm a second Ciro right out of the gate. I appreciate the personal shout out the other day. That was cool as fuck. I was on a fucking cell phone tower. That was a really uplifting moment because it was cold. And I want to give a shout out to Boston Rob. He can't be here right now. He not on the Zoom live yet. He's about as good at it as I was 2 days ago. And I'm getting better, but it's yeah, I'm still having a rough time. Let's see. Shout out to Scott and Burns, the original Gangster podcast, Art and Clothing Apparel. Shout out to that one motherfucker, South Philadelphia Sam, that came on yesterday and stammered around with me and talked shit about Nicky Scarfo, Philly and Eddie. Anybody who talks shit about Philly and Eddie with me is a friend of mine. So I appreciate you, Sammy. Paulie G from New York, all the boys, Vincent Apro, because I'm going to, like half the shit I say that's actually factual probably actually came from him. So Vincent Apro, 10 out of 10 times. I mean, Casey, it's all you, man. It's Costello. I get to relax.
So we're talking Frank Costello, huh? I mean, what can I say about the guy? He was an interesting character, that's for sure. That's kind of how I got into it. I was interested in this mob history, and I think if you're going to, delve into that at all, it won't take long until you come across Frank, because he, kind of like we talked about yesterday, he was involved in so many, first of all, different eras of, kind of the classic mob history, but also so many, events that were important in that history, from the Atlantic City Conference to, just. It goes on and on. He was pretty active, from pre-prohibition all the way up to 1973, and he knew pretty much every major mobster that was out there, and he had a lot of reach in different areas of the United States. He wasn't just New York. He was pretty big down in New Orleans. He was involved in Vegas, all up and down the Eastern Seaboard. So he's a good character to kind of study if you're going to be into this, because there's a lot that you can read. There's lots of pictures. There's even video and audio, which is great. You don't get that from a lot of these guys. So
I pay my taxes.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably his most famous quote. But
yeah, I do got a question for you. Because you said Frank was older. I never thought about it before, but do you think he got a little taste of that money from the 1919 World Series with good old Arnie Roston? I don't know. So much older than some of the boys, so I'd have put him at I don't know, he'd been the perfect age to have if Arnold would have suggested that. Do you think? I'm just wondering, and if not, I'm starting a myth.
No, I mean, it's a good question. I've never seen it, because I've asked myself the same question. I've never seen anything or heard any stories about him being involved in that at that time. I think that might be just a little bit before he got hooked up with Rothstein, you know, because right when Prohibition hit, like I said, Frank had gotten out of jail on a gun charge, and there's a big myth kind of about he never carried a gun after that. And he decided when he got out of jail, he was going to use his brains instead of, you know, brawn. I don't know exactly how true that is, if he never really did carry a gun after that. That, you know, that's up for debate, but that's the story. But right after that happened, he hooked up with a guy named Harry Horowitz, and they started the punch card business, you know, where you punch a little card, and if you get the winning number, it comes with like a Cupid doll, and if you get the winning number, you can get like a nickel or something, whatever it was at the time. So they were manufacturing those and the Cupid dolls that went with it, and they did that for a year, and they ended up making about a little over 200 grand, which was a lot of money back then, especially for Costello. He was a young man at that time, but immediately after by that first year, they declared bankruptcy, and that's kind of an old mob trick, you know. They bust out all their debts to their friends, they declare bankruptcy, and then the friends give them their money back, you know, with a little bit of a cut on that. So Frank had a big sum of money right there at the beginning of Prohibition that he needed something to do with it, and you know, the time was right. And that's what I think about when he met probably Rothstein, because he had some cash, and Rothstein kind of picked him out, like Lansky and Lucky. He's like, hey, this guy's a little bit of probably above your average, you know, street thug.
Is that how they met? Sorry, Casey, is that how they met then, Lucky and Frank? And because I know, wasn't Lucky and Maya part of Rothstein to begin with? Yeah,
well, Frank was, you know, a lot of people I don't think realize this. Frank was older than those guys. He was already kind of hooked in with the Masseria gang and all that, you know, or the Morello gang and stuff at that time. And so, what's that?
Didn't he have like an alliance with like Dutch Schultz and them, like Oni Madden and some of them even for a little while?
Him and Madden were, yeah, they were friends all through their life. You know, when Madden went down to Hot Springs, Frank used to go down there all the time and visit him and hang out with him. So yeah, they were pretty tight. I mean, I think there was a pretty good alliance of a lot of those bootleggers kind of, you know, helped each other out.
Good old English boy, Madden.
Psychopath. I don't know. It was with Dutch Schultz. That son of a bitch did not make fucking making money with him easy. He was I don't know, it's weird because, like, I don't know, there's always other gangsters I put on a pedestal, like, above him, but, like, every time I read about Dutch Schultz, I'm always like, man, he's a mean motherfucker, dude. Like,
yeah,
he's a very violent guy. Like,
yeah, he was a bad dude, you know. I mean, those guys. One thing about Costello that happens that I hear a lot, he gets compared to Castellano a lot, and I think a lot of people in this history that don't really know much about him, they have the impression like he came out of prep school or something and then was handed the keys to the family. Like, the dude came up through Prohibition. I mean, he was one of the main guys. Like, you got to be tough to, you know, there's nobody that survived and made it through that wasn't a tough son of a bitch. So, you know, Costello was a lot tougher than people give him credit for. But you know, I think he met Lucky probably a little bit before he met Rothstein. I think they knew each other and were probably working together a little bit pre that. And I think, you know, when Rothstein met those guys, it was kind of all together, you know, and I think he saw what they were doing, and, you know, he's like, these guys are working together. I think I could work with these guys and mold them into something. And so Frank was lucky enough to be one of those guys that kind of got the tutelage from.
And they were the original immigrants as well, weren't they? They were first generation. They came over. They weren't born in America, so the chances are, with them being in, although New York's large, the chances of them kind of combining early on is obvious, I suppose, in a way, because they've got the similar backgrounds.
Because Charlie Lucky's there, bro. Come on now.
Yeah, I think
they all bring their teeth, but that dude was just an aura of like, hey, come with me. Come on, I'm gonna show you how to do it. It's gonna be all right. We're gonna get it, boys. I got an idea. I don't know if it'll work, but I got an idea.
Well, it worked pretty much, but you know, but I agree. I think, you know, guys that were going to be that were in that business, in that world, the guys that were rising to the top were bound to kind of come together at some point. You know, you're going to cross paths, and if you could get along and you see the value of having a partner like that, you know, they're going to, and they did. That's what they did. They teamed up and pretty much.
He was like, I don't know exactly what he said, but more or less like shut the fuck up because he was bitching about I don't know if it was Siegel or Lansky. He was bitching about somebody Jewish being in the crew, and then Costello's like kind of put him in his place about it.
There's a story about that said, yeah, he's, that Vito said you're trying to fill up the family with a bunch of Hebes or something. And then Costello apparently said, you're nothing but a foreigner yourself. And whether that really happened or not, who knows? Apparently, they say Siegel was there and he was going to swing on Vito, and then Costello kind of broke it up. And
the thing is, though, Casey, I mean, again, with them being first generation over, and of course, Vito was from Naples, which Camorra, and then you've got Frank, who's from Calabria, which is, of course, the Ndrangheta. Do you think some of that might have played in the early days? That there was that Sicilian, Italian, and of course the different mafias within Italy as well, with their cultures. That right at the start there could have been a bit of that going on, as much as the racism towards the Jewish, obviously.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think Frank, he ran into problems, being Calabrian a few times, with some people that weren't wanting to work with him, or they kind of put him in a lower class, I guess. So, but he was lucky to meet up with that next generation, because they were a little bit, as we know, they had a more modern outlook on it, and they were willing to work with each other. That didn't seem to be a problem with Lucky, obviously. No. But I think Vito might have been a little bit. I think it definitely was with Joe the Boss. There's stories that he used to call Costello the dirty Calabrian, and didn't really
work for a bunch of wops.
Yeah,
well, even Vito belonged to a group of the Camorra that come over as well as the commission, didn't he? I mean, it weren't just Vito was part, obviously, the Genovese family, what it become, and part of the commission and part of, if you like, the big boys. But he also had a lot of sidelines, if you like, with his own nationalities, even though they're all Italian, but from the localities, if you like.
Yeah, we talked to them about it.
Yeah, I think he's, he had a lot going on. Rob and I talked about this, or not Rob, excuse me, Ian. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, where, again, just like Costello kind of gets put in this little, box where he really wasn't that tough. Brutal, or Vito gets the same thing. They're like, he wasn't that smart, and that's not true at all. I think, once you kind of start to learn more about him, he always had side things going on. He was making money too. I mean, obviously,
but for Mussolini, I mean, he was Mussolini's basic drug dealer, wasn't he? I mean, he was teamed up with his son or his cousin, Mussolini's son or cousin?
I'm not sure. Do you know, Ian? I don't know too much about what he did when he was over in Italy.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he literally giving, it was the equivalent of £2 million a month that Vito was handing over to, obviously rumored to be £2 million a month, because Michael, and this was when he was on the run for the Eric the Hawk murder, but not Eric the Hawk. Who did he run for? What murder did Vito run from? What did he go?
I can't remember the guy's name, but
I keep forgetting that. I wrote about it myself, and I can never remember the guys. Like, I'm sure it's Eric the Hawk Rupillo that he was on the run for. I can't remember now, but anyway. While he was over in Sicily, he in Italy. He immediately began working with Mussolini, and he was soon into the drug game. So obviously, Sicily was one of the major hubs for the drugs that were coming through, and I think. Lucky when he went over to Italy, he restarted it after he was deported. Was that 46? Was it? So yeah, I mean, I think Vito in Italy. There's a whole story there, because of course once the Allies come and took over, Vito was soon working, but he was still working with Calogero Vizzini, who was obviously the head of the Sicilian mafia at the time in Villalba. So yeah, I mean, Vito in Sicily was one of your own. He very much survived out there, and I think
survived. Fuck survived.
Who?
I said fuck survive, and he thrived. He not only survived, he thrived out there.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for that Orange Sea Dickie, Vito probably would never have come back to America. But he wanted to make a name for himself, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good example of like what we're talking about, like his smarts. He hit the ground running as soon as he was over there, and he had stuff going on, right away. There's, I don't know that this has never been confirmed, but this is just a theory of mine. But when Costello, in the late 20s, he had to go to court. They were going to bust him on bootlegging, but he beat the charge. But he was feeling like there was a lot of kind of heat on him at the time, so he went back to Italy for the first time to go. He still had some family there, some sisters, and he wanted to visit Liracoli, his hometown. But he went back and in the late 20s, and he apparently had a meeting with Mussolini at the time. What it was about, I don't know. Probably had something to do with trying to run booze or some kind of trafficking thing. But as far as I know, they only met once. But I don't know. I always wondered if that had something to do with maybe how Vito hooked up with him too. Maybe Frank had some kind of in with that and set him up with it. But I don't have any confirmation
1920
on
would be a
that.
pretty good time for guns. 1920 would be a pretty good time for Frank to be trying to move some guns for Mussolini.
Sure, and who knows what he was smuggling stuff left and right at that time. So
and it doesn't matter the political persuasion, whether you're communist, fascist, or democracy. Money talks.
Exactly.
It's the number one thing, isn't it? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. It's money talks.
No. Yeah. I say burn it all down, but I'm gonna go buy a new pair of Adidas when we're done with this. So, I mean, what the fuck do I really know?
So what do you for me, there's a hell of a lot of misinformation that's out there, all right, making of the mob, and I think that it's very difficult to try and, if you history and time's very much a killer of history, isn't it? Things change so much over the years, which is really, in one aspect, why I have a lot of respect for you, Casey, as I do J. Michael and Christian Cipollini, and of course Gary as well. For I look up to you guys because of your search for the truth. You're always looking behind the headlines, and you always go that extra little step, if you like, to really find that truth. Because I think a lot of, not so much historians, but crime writers, true crime writers, they kind of why kind of care about the truth when this story sounds so much better. And I think there's a lot more interesting stories with the truth than what there is with some of these stories that have been made up, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough with Frank Costello because he's one of those guys where the myth surrounding him at this point is mushroomed. There's all sorts of
Departed.
stories.
It pisses me off so much. Like, God, Scorsese started. I should have known The Irishman was going to be the worst movie ever made because he started dropping the ball in The Departed. Like, it's about Whitey Bulger. Why are you going to name him Frank Costello? Costello, it's not even an Irish name. Like,
right? I mean, and there's so much now. Like, you see a lot of quotes going out there. Then you see Frank Costello's picture with it, but they're quotes from the Departed. Now that's all been kind of blurred in. Yeah, and there's people who think that that is based off Frank, and that that character couldn't probably be farther from
Vito Corleone as well. They're saying, aren't they? Do they say the same about Vito Corleone, Frank Costello?
A lot of it is, yeah. His voice, and like we were talking about that yesterday too, like the story of the Frank Sinatra and the horse's head and stuff like that. He did help get Sinatra that part in From Here to Eternity, but he just made a phone call to the William Morris agency. He had friends there and they owed him a favor, or they were happy to do him a favor. So so a lot of that is based off Frank, but there's a lot that's also based off Gambino and Profaci and stuff too. It's kind of a big mix of all those guys. But
let's be honest, there wasn't a lot back then at the early days. Obviously, well, more so after Prohibition, of course, that the Italian-American mafia didn't have a part of. Construction, the gay bars, restaurants, the music industry, the garment industry, the rubbish collection.
Child pornography, just because we don't want to make these guys out to be
pornography. I mean, they were well, yeah, of course. Deep Throat Linda was so successful, they had to launder the money, and they laundered the money and made the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, there's the myths that they don't get involved in the stuff like the drugs and the porn industry, and that's all. We all know that's a myth at this point. So it looks good on paper. Those guys. I think a lot of those guys, they want their legacy or whatever to be looked at a certain way. So they're never going to cop to, doing things like that. It's like, with the drugs with Costello, I don't think that he liked it. I don't think that he really dealt with it himself much at all, but he certainly, when he was in charge, knew what was going on. And like I said, I don't think I've ever heard a story of him like refusing an envelope or anything like that. So it'd be somebody that's that street savvy that came out of Prohibition, was probably one of the guys who opened up a lot of those smuggling channels through the bootlegging. He certainly had to know that was going on. It was be like an insult to his intelligence to say he didn't. He just
that's why I like this guy right here, David, because like literally there's so many things he's saying that like he's just sort of like just chopped the edges off him for himself, and it just sounds even better. But he said the same thing yesterday, man. It's verbatim. It's beautiful to watch. I'm like, that's why I'm not even trying to say anything really. Like fucking, that's exactly what you said yesterday. I love it.
It's a National Crime Syndicate, brother. National Crime Syndicate.
Yeah, I know. You fucking won't let me in, man. I fucking applied like 7 times, man.
Books ain't open.
You guys, I know. Keep me on the outskirts like a Henry Hill. I'm gonna flip.
I haven't, I really haven't done much for the NCS. Like, Craig and they kind of restructured a lot of the stuff, and they're doing their, kind of a different thing now. So if Craig needs something, or he has, something he needs a favor or wants me to do something, I do. But the thing at the Costello thing at this point, I've been doing it for, over 5 years, and it's getting to the point where I'm pretty much kind of mind it dry. There's every year I still do learn something new, or something comes up, or I find a new picture or something like that. But it's, you delve that much into just a single person, you're going to run out of material sooner or later. But to his credit, he is interesting enough and had enough of stuff happen in his history that it lasted quite a while. So
same with Charlie Richardson. I mean, there was only so much. I mean, he spent a hell of a lot of time behind bars, so there was only a short period during the kind of 60s where he really, like the Craig, he really becomes synonymous. But there are so many stories. That's it. Once it's the other day he was walking down the road and he bought a newspaper. I mean, you start getting to that point there, because and then everybody knows. So we're talking about guys that really did have a short shelf life at the end of the day. I mean,
that's why Carmine Persico is one of my favorites, all time. Like Carmine Persico's like fascinating. I've read that Frank D'Amato's. I don't know how to say his last name. I'm so bad with Italian last names. I can write them, but I can't read them. And D'Amato, whatever. But no, dude, that book's great. Like fucking Carmine, I don't get it. You literally spent no time on the streets. I don't know. I tallied like maybe close to a decade, and that's like in his whole run. Defends himself, fucking screws himself doing that. Spoke for 90 minutes. Who speaks for 90 minutes on their own behalf when you're facing like the commission charge? And then like he's got a whole bunch of shit that's like kept after forever. Fucking like the Larry Gallo hit. It's in The Godfather 2. That's not going nowhere. That's here forever. What the fuck's the other one? He did. There's another something he was supposed to have done in a movie that's like an infamous scene, and it's supposed to be because of Carmine Persico hit. And I don't know. I'm slowly becoming obsessed with Carmine Persico. He's creeping his way in. He's a slimy bastard, dude. God, I won't want to be that guy. I didn't pay to be his friend or his enemy. He's like a smarter, calmer Nicky Scarfo, and it's it's really a wonderful thing.
Yeah, interesting guy.
Yeah, very. I mean, even Vito, obviously one of my favorites. He didn't have a long run, really. I mean, 59. I'm not going to mention appellation, but 59 really, 59 really does leave a bad taste in my mouth. It's you don't mind if someone gets. I would have rather seen someone put a bullet in his head than the way that the 1959 trial went, because that was there ever any real loyalty within the mafia? Was there anything? Did they really understand what omerta meant? Because I mean, omerta grew in Sicily and in Italy. It's part of the fabric. It was part of the individual. Whereas where these have left at a young age, that's why Carlo Gambino, he come over at an old age. The ones that come over older, the ones that seem to last a lot longer, because they had that real mentality of what a murder was, what blood meant, what family meant, I think.
Yeah,
World
I
War
mean,
II seemed to do a number on that too. Sorry, Casey. Just it
Oh,
seems
yeah,
like
well-
from World War II, like that World War II era stretch, like taking it to a motherfucker. They really like a Neo Della Croce or something like that, to where like their eyes they didn't blink. They walk up and shoot you and not blink. You wouldn't even bother them. You know what I mean? Like it's different. How many bodies does Costello have? He's had to have killed somebody.
well, the story is he didn't. There is one bit of a story out there that during Prohibition, he had an older brother, Ed, that he also worked with, and Ed was, by all everything I've heard, he was a little bit meaner and tougher than Frank. So he was kind of like his his protective big older brother. But there was a rival bootlegger that they were having issues with. And the guy took a couple shots at Ed, and I think took a shot at Costello too at the time, but it didn't kill him, obviously. Yeah. But that guy disappeared shortly after. And there is one story of a guy that said that he heard Frank copped to that, but he said what I think it was, it's more he just I think it was Ed that did it, and I think Frank took the credit for it because it was kind of good just to have a story out there that maybe he did do that, kind of protect. If people think that you're capable of that, that's kind of a deterrent in a way. But there's no, I don't, as far as I know, I don't think he ever did. He did hit a guy in New Orleans one time, was skimming from him and Phil Costello and Marcelo and all those guys, what they had going on. Mm-hmm. And Frank came down and did he rented a hall, had a meeting with these guys, and he brought the guy up to his podium, and he had a wrench underneath the podium, and he whacked the guy on the head with the wrench. He didn't kill him, but he did that in front of everybody. And he claims that was one of his only real big acts of violence. But when he was younger, though, he never went to jail for it. But like you were saying yesterday, there's a bunch of times that he got caught.
1907, 1908, 1912, 1917, 1918.
And he was mugging people. He hit one guy with a hammer in one of those things. So, he was capable of doing that kind of stuff. But as far as I know, he never, killed anybody. If I found out today that he did, I wouldn't be surprised given, what he came from.
But killed a man.
Yeah. No. But I think that's one of the big myths too, just like the drugs or we don't kill our own kind of thing is you got to kill a guy to get into there. Like if you're making the kind of money that, Costello's making, who's going to say no? You want that guy on your team. He proved that he was trustworthy. He was loyal. He didn't rat people out. And
I don't want him going down for murder. We're going to leave fucking Joe Valachi to go down for murder. That's who's going to go down for murder. The guy this is his doom. Yeah, that's who's fucking going down on a murder beat. Let me tell you.
Well, Valachi was
David ain't killing nobody. We're sending somebody else. I promise.
Valachi gets a bad rap in a way. He was a he was a real gangster.
Disagree with him. He was gangster.
He was proper gangster.
He was. Yeah.
Do you know what, Casey? I still don't think that. I think he was more. He gave the FBI information. But they were more aware of the information. He was basically confirming some of the stuff that nobody knew. There was no. Yeah, he was a gangster. However, there was no way that he knew what was going on all around the country. No, I mean, he even admits that he kind of had his own things going on. He had his machines going on. I mean, he was earning money in his own right. Yeah. And he obviously, I don't know, again, that all for me surrounding 59, obviously, it all just seems a little bit all convenient. And with what happened at Atlanta prison with Valachi, killing a stranger, it just all, but it all seems strange to me. It does seem strange to me, but it's funny
it's weird.
It's funny that you brought up the word myth, because I was watching a podcast, a YouTube video yesterday. It was Dave Courtney from over here, and he was talking about the time when he became security at the Ronnie Craig's funeral. He didn't want. He obviously didn't want to be on the front page, but within this world, if you like, the myth that no one can ever be bigger than the myth. The myth will always be bigger than the individual, and it basically cost him. He was having people taking his kids to school, and the teachers are saying, "Do you mind picking your children up from down the road because you're scaring the parents?" But all he done, he wasn't a bad guy. Yeah, he was involved in a world, if you like. He used to run the doors. It was at the time when ecstasy was a big thing, so there's a lot of drugs obviously in the clubs that were club dealers that were allowed to be there as long as they were given a grand over kind of thing. So but he wanted to stay under the radar, and then once he done the Craig's funeral, that was it. I mean, he organisation work that he was doing, he then had to get into the celebrity side because no one wanted to work with him. He was basically being touted as the guy that took over from the Craze. He's the next on the throne, and who wants that title in London? I mean, so yeah, the myth is always bigger than the person.
Absolutely. I mean, when you guys were talking on the Castellano podcast that you did, you guys brought up a good point about Gotti, and people would say he's too flamboyant, or about Capone, but it's not Gotti that was flamboyant. It's the press.
That's
the
what they
press
wanted.
loved him.
Yeah.
I mean, like the same thing, with Costello. He, I got this one here since we're on Zoom, but he ended up on Time Magazine. He didn't ask to be on Time Magazine. he was big news. And once that starts to happen, there's no going back.
And you don't see that out much, do you? Yet the one with Gotti is everywhere.
Yeah,
absolutely everywhere. So Frank Costello had already started that business. It's as if you think that Gotti was the first one to appear on the front cover, and yet there you are, 40 years earlier. And Frank Costello, if you like, and when you look at, like you say, there's a lot of audio about, because he was the 1940s John Gotti.
Absolutely.
He was everywhere. So it's like you say. I think John Gotti's great. I mean, whether or not some of his decisions were brilliant, neither here nor there. But I just think he was the right man at the right time for that role.
Want it, do it.
Yeah, I mean, the media were going to be all over him anyway. The FBI were following Sam Giancana 24 hours a day. They were standing next to him. So,
it was done.
If I'm going to get the limelight, I'll take the limelight. But when I take the limelight, I'm saying what I want and I'm doing what I want.
And in a way, your motherfucking head off.
But how much do you think that the flamboyancy which brought, or the flamboyancy in the media side, if you like, enabled John Gotti to get away from some of those crimes and become the Teflon Don, because people knew who he was. They knew he was on the front cover. If you're on a jury and you're like, who's this guy? I've never heard of him before. And someone says, if you go not guilty, it's $100. I'll be like, I've never heard of him, mate. Why have I got to be worried? But it's John Gotti sitting there and you're like, oh, yeah, I'll take that. Tell you later, I'm off. So I wonder how much of that played a part in him becoming a Teflon Don, that the media provided enough information about him to get him not guilty. He didn't need to bribe the jury. The media were getting him off.
Sure. I mean, he became like a folk hero. I mean, I grew up here on the West Coast, and even I knew who Gotti was. We don't have that news like you guys have out there. We don't have the what's Dave Schwartz, or I can't pronounce his name. The guys doing that kind of true crime and mob journalism, because they're just not as much out here. But I sure knew who Gotti was, and I remember the Castellano hit. That was big news even out here. So
if you're bringing a jury from outside of the state, if it's someone like Gotti, they're going to know who he is immediately. But if you're bringing in people from out of state for, we can come up with a load of names, but for someone that's slightly less known, they're not going to know anything. So the likelihood is they're going to believe the Justice Department. But then with Gotti, we all have our Robin Hoods, don't we? We all have, especially when you come from the wrong side of the tracks, you love the people that give it to the man. You love those people that are getting out, and let's be honest, he also looks after his own, and he looks after his community. He kept the community safe. So as a person, I think John Gotti was up there with one of the best.
That was one of my favorite things, is when he comes out of court and the one guy just kind of helps him to his car, and he gets in and he hands him a 50. And they put it in the movie too. And the media camera asked the guy he gave the 50 to, he's like, what's it like to be given a 50 from John Gotti? And John Gotti goes, oh, is that a 50? Give me the 50 back. Here, take 100. Like, people love that shit. People love that shit.
I mean, that you know, Gotti and Costello had a lot in common that way. It's like, first of all, the camera loved them. You know, they you look at all the pictures and they had that thing about them. So
Frank
they
smoking the
look good.
cigarette right there in the background.
Yeah, I mean, and there's but they were good. They were witty as well. You know, like Frank. You know, I think the press liked him in some ways. First of all, he was big news. Second of all, he wasn't, you know, belligerent. He wasn't a scary dude. He was fairly approachable for a guy like that. But you know, he usually had a good quote or something funny to say that was good in the paper or in the press or something like that.
And
so,
look like gangsters.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, you know,
Costello,
like we
Gotti,
said,
they look
once
like
that
gangsters.
starts, yeah, once that whole thing started, you know, just like Gotti, I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with the downfall of Frank as well. It just, how effective of a boss can you be when every one of your phones is tapped? Everywhere you go, the minute you come out of your house, there's guys following you. You know, right after the Kefauver and everything like that, he had people trailing him forever. There was, he was never not getting watched, and he knew it, and I think everybody knew it. So you know, his days were numbered just by the sheer amount of eyes that were on him all the time at that point. But you know, like Gotti, when Frank was retired, or you know, whatever you want to call that, but you know, he was a fixture of New York. He's like a legend. You know, people see him walking down the street like there's the Godfather. You know, people kind of like that, having that in the city, that kind of thing. You know, and people asked him for his autograph. He would give him his autograph. You know, so I don't know.
Wasn't Lucky the same? If I heard stories that if he was walking down the road and you actually literally bumped into him, that he'd apologise to you.
Yeah.
I've heard, yeah, I mean, I've heard that. I mean, that's why those guys were able to kind of exist in that upper world with, you know, with the politicians and the actors and the sports people and stuff. They didn't scare the shit out of people. Like some of these guys, that's what they want to do. You know, some of the stories you hear about Vito, that's exactly what he wanted to do. That was the impression he wanted to give. But you know,
it's bigger than a person.
Yeah, I mean.
That's where looks matter too, because I'll put Bugsy Siegel right up there with as violent and as vicious as Vito. Doesn't have the same body count, didn't ever run to have the same control, but the temperament, the willingness to kill, the second you cross that line, it's over, you're done. Bugsy Siegel had that too, but people loved him. Fucking Hollywood and Vegas loved him. I don't get it.
I think he, when we talk about like some of the myths and some of the stories that have gotten out of control, I think his story a little bit it suffers from that. His crazy violence in public and stuff like that. I don't think he was, you know, I think he was a tough dude and all that's true. But, you know, when you see him in movies or you hear people talk about him, like he's, you know, just F this, F that, always, you know, causing a problem. I don't think guys like Lucky or Frank or Lansky would deal with a guy like that very long, you know, so he had to be a lot smarter and a little bit more calm than he gets credit
I don't know, because how do you explain Spilatro? They always kind of seem to put up with Tommy Argro. Tommy Argro's a nut, man, and like Gambino's still kind of like. I mean, you're probably right. It probably is like way oversold because it's Hollywood, but like I don't know. Like, what kind of rules would he have had to have followed? Like, obviously he scale him out of enough money. You're fucking dead. Doesn't matter. But like, there's no way he had to abide to the same exact structure as like Lucky or Vito did. He had to have been him and Lansky both. I would assume anybody that wasn't, you know, full-blooded, you kind of get to bend a rule here and there, like one that they can't break, you can. So use them for that, you know.
Sure, but I think, but like, you know, when you're dealing with stuff like, you know, like building places like the Flamingo, or you're dealing with that kind of much money and big business ideas like that, you know, a lot of the people in the real world, they're not going to want to deal with somebody like that. And, you know, I think Costello and Lucky, those guys knew that. And that's why they kind of changed their approach so that they could fit in better with that. And if you got this loose cannon running around, you know, acting crazy all the time, it's going to screw a lot of those things up and bring a lot of, you know, unwanted attention. So I think some of it's true. Definitely. Like I said, he was a tough guy. He was a ruthless guy, but I don't think he was, you know, like again, like in these movies, even with Spilatro, like when you hear Oscar Goodman talk and stuff like that, he was one of his biggest complaints about, you know, the movie was he's like, I never heard him say the F word once. You know, he was always polite and a gentleman.
Ladies man, wasn't he? Spilatro. He liked the ladies. That's what got him into trouble.
And you see the movies, everything's F this, F that, you
Yeah.
know, blah, 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 you know, which it
Oh,
makes
boy,
a good movie, but
read something from Chicago, actually. I'm gonna have to do a Zoom with him here soon because he's the one who made me download it. He ran with philosopher a lot. Actually, fun fact, he ran with the Outlaws in like the late 60s, early 70s. And then he's got a bunch of CBS. I'm pretty sure he flipped. I don't know entirely, but he messaged me. He's like, "You're a joke, guy. What do you know about Tony?" And then he writes me. He's like, "Hey, I want to help you." I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, and he writes me. He did. He said Tony was actually like a complete gentleman. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, I guess, but a gentleman doesn't crush a dude's head in a vice. You know what I mean? Like, there are certain things that are oversold, but they're still, I mean, they are, you know.
absolutely. I mean, he's a dangerous guy for sure. You know,
Yeah.
not debating that at all. But you know, you can only go. It's kind of like that mob thing about, you know, you don't want too much violence because the public will put up with, they'll put up with white collar crime all day long, and they'll put up with a little bit of violence. But once it starts to get, you know, too much, like that St. Valentine's Day massacre stuff like that, you know, that's when people start putting the brakes on
Easy,
that.
guy. Come on, settle down.
Yeah, you screw it up.
New Orleans with I'm going to forget his name, David Hemingway, Hennessy, David Hennessy. If you look at that situation where the public raided the prison because of violence that was going on, because of what was going on, and that is how far they allowed it to get to. And it's like, right, we've had enough now. We're taking it. And it's like, no, we're not having it. So yeah, you're right. They do enable that little bit of violence, that bit of. I mean, at the end of the day, let's be honest. I think the world breeds on corruption. It needs corruption.
Oh, I thought you were going to say violence. I was
well, it needs crime in one aspect, because without crime, how do you kind of define that social line between right and wrong? I'm not, and I'm a reformed character now, so I don't commit crime anymore. But I'm saying it is kind of needed in a way.
Well, all the good stuff and the fun stuff comes from all the fun stuff comes from crime. You know, prohibition, booze. Can
I just say though, when I'm talking crime, I'm about the organised crime. I'm not talking about the rapes and the nasty murder, sexual offences. We're talking about organised crime, the mafia world, gangs and that kind of thing. But the gangs in respect of organised crime. I'm not trying to glorify that violence and crime is
absolutely
glorifying the shit out of it. I'm glorifying the shit out of it.
But like what you're saying, David, like when you look at, like, here in America, all the fun cities, or Kansas City, New York, Las Vegas, they're all mob.
Oh, no, Detroit, huh? No,
Detroit. Well, Detroit too. No, I mean, look, all the cool music always, or New Orleans too. You know, you got the clubs, the cool music will always come out of a mob town because they've got these places where the musicians go, and you know, movies, booze, all these little fun vices that people kind of thrive on and sort of need. That's all comes out of that, you know, that crime world. So that they do serve some kind of a service, you know. And Gary Jenkins always says, like, you know, the best towns, you got to have a little bit of corruption in them. That's what makes them interesting, you know.
My favorite is when they do get to motherfuck him at every turn. Is like, you lock Capone up for 10 years, and what does he do? He's all like, all right, well, fuck you, putting expiration dates on milk bottles in, you prick. You want to lock me up? You want to see what I'll spend money towards? If you put me in a cell, here's what I'll spend money towards. You know what else you're going to fix? Those fucking roads. Like, because they're the only people who could afford to lobby against lobbyists back then. So the only ones who could back it and their bankroll wasn't going to run out. They could shut down.
Even the rackets game was a way out for people that played the numbers. It was a lot of money for nothing, really. I mean, you didn't put a lot of money in, and you got a lot of money back. It was
down and get you like $600, something crazy.
Exactly,
like that.
$600 back then is a lot of money. That could feed a family for a year back then. So I mean, it was still all right. It might have been illegal gambling on the streets, but it wasn't doing anyone any harm. You were getting better odds through the wire than you would at tracks. I mean, they were offering better odds as well, so you was getting more buck for your money. And
there's a weird thing that happens, like in depression eras, and when times are really bad and people don't have money, they seem to spend money on stuff like gambling, though, you know, because they need something, you know, to boost their. You know,
The thing
so
is, nowadays, Casey, you've got telephone companies. If you don't pay your bill, they send people around to come and take your goods. So where's the
Whoa, where are you living?
no bailiffs and court bailiffs? We have that in England. If you don't pay your bills, they can come and take your stuff off you, come
this is
and into your
America,
house,
dog.
your goods. So no, so how's that different? Where's that different? You owe us money. You're not paying us. It's illegal to use violence, so therefore we're going to come and take your goods and what you own. It's like, thanks.
Hit me in the head with a bat or something. Get it over with. Like,
it's still intimidation, like you're saying.
Exactly.
You know, it's the same thing. But
if you're a vulnerable person, you've got a 6'5" big geezer standing at your door. That's intimidation, even before he said anything.
One thing that bugged Costello a lot in his later years was, and I mean, if you saw things today, him and Lansky be, you know, rolling in their graves, but pretty much everything that he was labeled a criminal for became legal. You know, the booze, first of all, and then with the gambling. I mean, now, you know, I can place bets on my phone. And, you know, and those, if they would have just, you know, put Lansky and Frank Costello in control of like the gaming industry and just, you know, and legalized it and regulated it, they should have just let them run it. You know, if everybody would have made money.
Give the native something, though. Come on now. Like,
but then you had prohibition, the building of Las Vegas. It's like if there was an opportunity for if the powers that be, here's a possibility that we can get the mafia involved. Let's do this, and it's like we'll let the mafia run it for a while. We can claw back, and then we'll take over after 10 years. They can build up the business. They do all the groundwork. They get all the distribution stuff sorted out. They get all the buyers and the sellers and everything else sorted out. Once they've done that, we can step in and legalize it.
Right, exactly.
It's like there's an undercover contract that goes on.
Yeah, it's, you know, like I said, those guys probably rolling in their graves right now, just seeing like how legal everything is, and you know what a time they had, you know, trying to do all that. But
think about weed, man. There's people who, when they were trafficking some marijuana so people could smoke weed, like I do 50 times a day, fucking, they were taking a lifetime sentence, like in Vegas, in like 71, 72. Thompson writes here in Logan, 70, 71. And so you're getting 25 years for a joint. That's insanity. That's crazy. That's like, I seen a kid get a year in jail for a Vicodin, not a palm full, not 30, not a whole script, not a bag, one. I'm like, that motherfucker didn't even know that was there, or there wouldn't have been one, bro. He fell under his seat. He didn't know. Like,
a guy in Hong Kong got 12 years for one ecstasy tablet.
Oh my God.
Crazy. But you know, the pharmaceutical company can just, you know, pump out opiates to everybody. It's perfectly legal. So there's we got a big problem here in the States. It's going to be interesting to see, like here in Oregon, where
it's no different to the mafia, is it? They got and they've got their own commission. They it's like judges. They oversee themselves. It's like their own commission. The pharmaceutical company oversees itself. The oil industry, the petroleum industry oversees itself. They self-regulate. That's no different to the commission and the mafia.
Exactly. It's a bunch of.
But it is. They make less money. Well, they make more money now because there's no mafia.
Well, yeah, it's rich, power-hungry people that promise that they'll regulate themselves. That, I mean, how well does that ever work out? I mean, I think the mafia is a great microcosm of that. If anybody wants to understand that, it's like they have this set of rules that they're supposed to abide by, and if everybody abides by those, everything's supposed to run real smooth. But do they ever abide by that?
It's a gangster never actually going to follow rules.
Exactly. That's what I always thought about, all these rules that people say that these gangsters have. I'm
Bikers get me the worst because they do go the hardest. The riding formation. If your mother dies or a brother dies that day, like you go to the brother, you're like, fuck you, bro. I'm not doing it. You can't make me. Oh, you're burning my tattoos off. Never mind. I suppose I'll be getting on that bike now. Like,
greed, and it's the money, it's the greed. It takes over you. You kind of, when it comes down to money and greed, the irrational brain takes over. You start making irrational decisions, don't you? And also when you're being surrounded continually by yes men, you think you can get away with murder, and that's why people in high positions that you think, why on earth would you do something like that? But then when you take a step back and they're surrounded by all these people that I can't do no wrong. I can do whatever it is that I like Donald Trump. I can do what I like because all these people tell me yes.
America,
yes.
Fired from London. Yeah, call them out. Call them all out. All right, before we lose time, I got it because I forgot to do it yesterday, and I do all these guys a big favor. I got pissed drunk at a German tavern last week, boys, when I was on the road for work. And these really cool guys, we all had a stein holding contest to where like all the guys in the room, you know, they held it out for as long as they could. And eventually when I went out, I cheers them. So, cause I knew they were doing a podcast. So I cheers them so they could get a little something for their cameras, you know, make a spectacle on myself, show off the tattoos, that whole bit. And then I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go see if they'll let me plug my shit. I just wanted them to give me a shout out. They call me up on the stage with them. They're like, no, just come up here and do it. It's cool. Like they call me up. So I gotta give a big shout out to the Underdog Journey. My penmanship is horrible. You probably can't see it anyway. But it's called the Underdog Journey. They're a business podcast. I don't know how like heavy they're starting up. I know they got a lot of money wrapped up in it because their production value is great. Because they weren't even on Spotify yet. And I was like, get on Anchor. They'll do it for free. I don't even know how I'm on Spotify. Right? but they're like, no, we stacked up a bankroll. We're doing it right. Really smart guys, man. Once again, the Underdog Journey is a business beer podcast all about fucking beer. And if you're anything like me, you fucking love beer. So yeah, I had to get that out. And then you can't talk Gotti without talking Sammy the Bull, who I'm gonna keep calling out until he comes on the hideaway. I'm not gonna stop, Sammy. I'm not gonna stop. I'm either gonna be murder number 20 or you're gonna be guest number 1,000, whatever, something. It'll take a while. I know it's gonna take a while. You're a ball buster, but Sammy the Bull's podcast on YouTube, fucking phenomenal. I love it. Yeah, we know he's a rat. I don't want to see it in the comments. I don't care. I'm not gonna read it anyway. So yeah, back to you guys. I told you I was just here to talk shit. So
listen, at the end of the day, I mean, we've got in one aspect. Without rats, there's a lot of information we wouldn't know.
It'd be boring. What would we talk about?
Oh, mate, the hard work being an organised crime historian, wouldn't it? Without rats, I mean, the amount of FBI files that I've gone through with information that obviously have been passed. It's like, imagine a life without it, and especially with all the redactions that go on as it is. Yeah. It's like reading a word search that's already been filled in, but then coloured in. It's just, I hate redacted documents. I had one quite recently, and it just wasn't work. I might as well have paid by the letter.
Yeah, right.
Rather than the page, and it only cost me about a tenner probably, being cheaper. Some of them was just absolute joke.
Yeah, the rat thing, like you're saying, though, you're talking about rules, and if everybody in the mob followed rules, we'd be absolutely nothing to talk about.
They would all have to be stupid. You would all have to have IQs of 26 to be like, yup, just gonna go to my death. Every single one of you, like, come on. Eventually, somebody's gonna be like, you know, I really don't want to die for all these assholes. Like,
you gotta kill somebody that you're not supposed to kill, or you gotta break the rules for guys like us to have a podcast about it.
Is a chief of police just gonna take a backhander, or is a chief of police going to want something in return as well to make it look to the public like he's getting a score as well? They're giving people up left, right and centre. They might not be giving up their own, but they're giving up other people. As long as with a brown envelope, there's a little bit of information, because that's what the police want. As long as the police can show that they're making arrests, that they're dealing with crime, and the chief is getting a backhander, everyone's happy. So at the end of the day, I would hazard a guess that 95% of those involved in organised crime in the building of it and everywhere else was not a rat, but gave information, played with the information. Played with information, used information for their benefit. It's very Greg Scarpa, exactly what he done. Whitey Bulger, exactly what he done. The only thing is, they're the ones that we know about because they're the ones we get told about. There must be thousands of them that have given it.
Look what happened to Lepke.
Not to law enforcement.
Yeah, I mean, Lepke's a good example of that. You know, the law enforcement, they needed to show, you know, Hoover and those guys were having no luck finding him at all, and it was becoming really embarrassing, and they really needed to make a bust on that one. What's that?
Who put him up? Who put Lepke up?
Well, it was probably mostly Costello. I mean, one of the reasons that Anastasia was able to convince him that they had a deal made was because he said Frank Costello made a deal with these guys that you won't go to the chair, and that was believable to him because Frank had that kind of power. But that that was not the case, and they had to give him up. It's not necessarily like they ratted him out, but if they wouldn't have given him up, they would have all suffered. They were going to come after all of them. So
the good of the spider is not the good of the fly.
Exactly.
You had a good run. You know what I mean? I do love when what was it? Dewey asked him, he's like, "Where are your powerful friends now?" He's like, "I'm beginning to wonder," or whatever.
I mean, his story is crazy. Like how he marched, to the electric chair twice. Like he got all the way there, and they stopped it. And I think at that point he believed probably still like, well, maybe Frank did get something, there might be something to this. But then, by the time it happened again, obviously, I don't think he died a real big Costello fan. I can tell you that.
I shared I published a story today on NCS about Harry Pierpont, and about how in 1934, when he was killed on or executed on the 17th of October 1934. But on the 22nd of 1934, which was my birthday, not 1934, but the 22nd of September, they tried to escape. Him and Charles Mackley had tried to escape, and they'd done exactly what Dillinger had done before, made a gun out of a bar of soap. They dyed it black. Mackley was shot and killed, but Pierpont was shot severely. I mean, he was riddled with bullets, and they kept him alive so they could put him in the chair.
Yeah. That's hardcore.
Come on, that's like what? The geezer's gonna die anyway. What? Yeah, it was just. But apparently, there's a guy now, even now, who they can't execute because he's got COVID.
Wow.
There's a story on that. I can't think of his name, but yeah, there's a story doing around. It's now.
You're not,
well,
obviously. Are you serious? You're being serious about that?
Well, the COVID one, 100%. He's on death row, and they were gonna execute him, but they couldn't apparently because he's got COVID. I don't know whether or not. I mean, I've read about it, but so I don't know whether or not that's the truth. But what I'm saying is what I read. So it's not something I've just made up.
No, I can see the world being that dumb at this point. They're like, hold on now, we can't execute him. He's got the pandemic. Like, yeah, okay. So, I mean, do you want me to put a mask on? I'll go in there and do it. Like, you guys need a volunteer? I'll go shoot the guy. Like, COVID, you know how long it can take to die from COVID? But
don't forget, executions are expensive. So they might be hoping that he's going to have a natural death. So if why waste taxpayers' money when you can? I mean, that's the only reason I can find behind it, because it is an expensive operation. Not operation, but
man. 22 caliber bullets they're not expensive. I don't get where I don't know what happened where, like, the hanging thing, I get stopping that don't make no fucking sense. Like, that seems like a lot of work. Chopping somebody's head off gets a little gratuitous, but like, yeah, man, you buy the rifle, that's the big chunk of the money. I'll give it to you. Taxpayers each got to chip in 14 cents because an old pole shooter 22 is like $200, and then the rounds, now everybody's really gonna have to buckle down for a penny a year towards execution if they just shot everybody. I don't know why they don't just shoot
Or stop shooting animals, stop hunting animals, let guys out on death row, take them out into the woods on an island so they can't escape the island and go around it. Well, it saves the animals, doesn't it? And these guys are going to die anyway. And that was a joke, people. I'm really not being serious. However, I'll probably get a lot of animal lovers agree with me.
Yeah, you got PETA on your back. I'm the one they're going to be like, that kid's a psychopath. They're going to be like, they're going to be like, is that kid registered to vote? Like, oh, God. Like, how much time we got, Dave?
I really don't know. I think we've been on an hour, so it could cut out at any. I think we got on about 20 past, so it's getting close. So
until the wheels fall off, for all I care. I just like, I don't want.
I mean, I'm happy to I think we're kind of following my last comments, dragging the bottom of the barrel right now, and I want to start to exit the trail. So, Casey, I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. We haven't messaged each other for a while.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you face to face.
It's great. Yeah,
I don't know what to say about all the stuff you're doing, man. You hit the ground running. You've really taken off with all that, and congratulations.
Because I started in prison, Casey. I started in prison. I knew the pathway that I wanted to take, and I knew what it was I needed to do to get there. So really, this is just validation of the decisions that I took whilst I was
You
in
still got
prison.
to do the work, though. I mean, knowing
Yeah, of
what
course.
you're supposed to do. A lot of people don't have that. Me included. I just don't have the discipline to put my nose to the grindstone like that, like you do. I mean, the amount.
It's the people.
Jenkins, the amount of stuff you guys put out. You guys never. I'm exhausted just trying to keep up with all the stuff you guys are doing.
Bro, I can't read as fast as you write. Like
I know exactly. It's you're really. I mean, the success that you're experiencing, you deserve it. You really.
Thank you, Casey. I appreciate that. I really appreciate it. And it's comments like that keep me going, because when people believe in you, when people appreciate you, it means so much. And the more you get it, that's then what you kind of focus on, rather than. So I mean, I love what I do, so it's not work. I mean, I don't think I do a day's work in my life anymore, or an hour's day. It's just so much fun, because we had a guy over here who was quite high up within kind of education. His name was Sir Ken Robinson, and he died a couple of months ago. And he said it's all about finding your element. Find out what it is that you love and love doing it. And that's kind of where I am. It's about, yeah. And when people give you that appreciation, and when people show you that respect and that support, you're just like, I want to do better next time. I can't wait for the next one. I can't. And you're on it. And it kind of, it deflects everything else, like the mental health, the urge to turn back to crime is not there. It's just such a package. It's just, I mean, obviously people in jail won't get to see this, but people that are coming out of jail, let's hope so, but people that are coming out of jail, if you really do want to change your life, change is possible. And once you start on that pathway, it's well, look at the comments you just give me there, Casey. So there's proof. That's the kind of, and you can see how much it means as well.
No, that's how much it mean, Casey. Is I said a bunch of nice shit in there too, and he didn't give a fuck.
You're always talking to me though.
I know. You guys were. That's how important he is, man.
You guys were talking on one of the podcasts too, just about like not reading the comments and stuff like that on some of these things. But it's tough with this social media thing, because there are so many negative trolls out there. But it's once you kind of get past. Stop caring what those people think, and like you say, focus on the people that do get what you're doing and are appreciating it. It gives you fuel to do that. So,
and surround yourself with people that inspire you, and that don't annoy you. And it's like people like yourself, Christian, Seth, Craig, Ian, Rob, Alan, all of those guys. I'll probably miss some names off, so I apologise if I have, but you know who you are. Zero. I mean, Zero just inspires me, because they're very similar backgrounds, and they're kind of, I'm a few years behind them, if you like, a year, 2 years behind. So it's like I know what they can achieve and what they've achieved. So I know what's to come in my own life if I carry on this path.
I stayed up to catch up to you fuckers, man. I'm way behind you.
This night I stayed up. I think it's amazing in this whole, I don't know, genre we're talking about here. The people I've reached out to and I've talked to have been nothing but supportive, and I was actually surprised by that. I thought it would be a little bit more competitive, and given the nature of, given the nature of what we're talking about, I thought a lot more people would be, would not be supportive.
Joey D.
What's that, Ian? D'Onofrio, did you say?
I said shout out Joey D'Onofrio. How you doing?
Yeah. Speaking of that, since this is the second time,
do I get
two fees?
Yeah,
Ian. So I get paid twice now, right? Because this is my second appearance.
Twice. I owe you $400 Casey. You'll get it Venmo. I'm good for it. I got a lottery ticket in my hoodie pocket. It's the winner, man. I'm telling you. You know us Irish, we're always good for betting the winners. That's why our mob got so far ahead. No, we just couldn't quit killing each other, really. I mean, that's all that was.
Hey, Costello got pretty far. He was Irish, right? So.
Yeah, right. I actually was going to quote that earlier where he says, I never gave nobody down. That wasn't going down anyway. That's Frank Costello, isn't it? Yeah. So, stop doing that. It's annoying for any of us who can read and actually know what we're talking about. And stop saying the Iceman killed fucking anybody. Saying Frank Sharon killed Jimmy Hoffa and Crazy Joe Gallo, you're pissing me off.
I'll tell you, Ian, who we want to get on, Larry Matza. We'd love to see Larry Matza on.
No, I was talking to him early on into it before COVID. I wanted to fly him out and bring him to my house. I was all like, I want to sit down.
I love Larry's a great guy. Have you spoke to Larry, Gary? Casey?
I never interviewed him, but I have, talked to him email and stuff. I was trying to set up an interview with him, with Gary, because I thought Gary would be, he'd be great on Gary's show and stuff. But they never hooked up for some reason or another. But
did you catch Gary's last one on the Cuban guy, who joined the FBI? I can't remember his name now.
Oh yeah, Garcia.
Yeah, Ramos. Yeah. Is it Ramos? Yeah. Oh, that was a brilliant show. That was one that I really enjoyed. That it was quite funny as well that he was Cuban and they had to sort of look into his background, make sure that he weren't a communist. And
I don't understand guys like that can do that job, go undercover like that. To me, that's just, my mind doesn't even live in that universe. But guys that are like, everybody gives him crap, but Pistone, like whatever. If people call him a rat, that's always the funniest thing to me. It's like, he's a cop. That's his job. That's his job. It's not a rat. He's doing.
How long what was that? It was quite a couple of, about 2 years, wasn't it? He was undercover with them.
No, it was like 7, man.
It was longer than that.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he works with the Columbos at first. He works with that shout out Joe Pistone. I'm never going to be able to afford to get you on here. But yeah,
Gary got him. Yeah. It was funny. Gary's story about getting him on too. He was like, it was all, and this didn't really occur to me, but I don't know why. But it was difficult to get him because he's still sort of in hiding. He wasn't just going to announce where he was or what time he was going to be. So Gary had it sounded like he had a kind of a time nailing him down. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess he probably still does have to be, reasonably.
I feel like I'm gonna pay Sammy the bill for an episode and not get it for like 12.
And another thing about something I've got to thank Gary for as well, that it was Gary that kind of sparked my interest in the Marlborough Diamond. And it was the Marlborough Diamond story that is being published in June in Mitzi Serrato's book, The Best New True Crimes.
I know where it is.
What's that, the Marlborough Diamond?
I know where it is.
Do you?
This is the one you guys did that you and Gary did a show on about, right? And
we did,
but we
didn't finish it. Yeah, we didn't finish the show because Gary he turned it into a play, and we never got to finish it because I was playing it because obviously Art and Jerry were imprisoned over here. They were in Parkhurst on the Isle of Wight, and Gary saw an opportunity to have an ex-prisoner who knows what he's talking about in respect to prison. I played a fictional character that was banged up in prison with Art and Jerry, and Art used to speak to me in confidence, and he was telling me about how Jerry wants to get out. They're going to go and do Angelo LaPietra's burgle his house, and they're going to go and get the diamond back. They're going to look for the diamond. But there's another twist in the story that we haven't spoken about, and nor did me and Gary. And with further research, and the twist is in the book. I don't want to give too much away, obviously, but the book's out in June. It's available. Mitzi Serrato, Zereto, Mitzi, her first name. Check that out. She's on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all the Facebooks, everywhere. But and I'm actually, hopefully, I'm going to be submitting another story for book 4. So, but that's
cool.
In case you guys didn't know, that was David. I Make Your Podcast. Apparently,
he said in the waiting room that I don't shut up.
I know. I love when you get like a final, really good, deep thought, and I'm just like, I can't say anything, or I'm going to ruin the show, so we're going to end it. You know what I mean? And Rob even agrees. He's like, "Yeah, no, let's get out of here." I'm like, "Yeah, good, let's get out of here." Nobody even say goodbye on that. Everybody just slowly step away. I'm going to hit end. Like, for real, you got.
I loved it though.
Probably like 7 or 8 now episodes where like if you were to sit there and listen all the way through and you get to the last like anything worth a fuck before we all just jamber goodbye and fucking I cut us out way too early and all that shit. like, I don't know, I mean, some of them, man, they're real captivating. I've gone back and listened to some of them and been like, God, I need to shut the fuck up. But like, David's on point though.
Always better to have somebody that's going to talk on your podcast than somebody just sits there and doesn't say anything. There's some real dud guests out there every once in a while you'll hear on a podcast, and you're like, well, why did you agree to go on here and talk if you're not going to say anything? You know? So.
Yeah,
it happens, man. You got to coach them through. That's the whole point of being a host, man. I mean, I've been there. Some motherfuckers back themselves into a corner, man. They've said all they have to say. You think a lot of this shit's good. That's what happened to me in my first couple episodes. That's why they're so fucking short. Like, I thought the Myth, the Man, the Legend, you know how many pages that was? I had like 7 pages went up. Like, I was like, shit, let's do a half hour, 12 minutes in. I was like, are you kidding me? Oh my God. Like, and then the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, I stretched a little more. One of my favorite episodes that I did by myself that didn't get a lot of love, man, I was pissed, is the Vincent Mad Dog Cole episode, man. I dug deep on that motherfucker for that episode. Like, I found everything you could find about Mad Dog Cole. He's one of my favorite, like, random gangsters now, because he's just a nut. He's like the Sid Vicious of organized crime. Like, I mean, for real, he is. I think he survived in organized crime like 2.5 years, 3.5 years, something like that. Like, when he started running with, like, Dutch Schultz and Oni Man, they were like, yep, nope, okay, you're dead. We're going to kill you. Like, you're too much. You don't know what's going on here. You don't get anything of what's going on here. But yeah, that episode didn't get a lot of love. And then shout out to Ronnie Cockroach, because he's actually the very first one to come out, Ron Roach. We did Danny Green, and he was great, man, even though his phone was cut out.
NCS.
Like, you know, what's up? NCS?
Ronald Roach, NCS.
Yeah,
Ron's done some great stuff with NCS, man.
They're the same guy, Ron Roach, like Ron Roach.
Yeah, yeah. Ron writes for National Crime Syndicate. He does all the New Orleans stuff.
Oh, okay.
Hence where
are you talking about Ron Rawson? Yeah.
No, you're talking about Ron Rawson. Yeah, I'm talking about Ronnie the Cockroach from Michigan. I'm talking about Ronnie.
Okay, yeah, that's different guy.
Oh, no, I'm wrong. Sorry, I apologize. My bad.
Yeah. You guys you should get Ron on here though.
Yeah, Ron Rawson's great. Ron, yeah.
He knows
I'm
his
excited
stuff.
for Seth, man. I'm so pumped. Seth said he'd do it. I really didn't expect Seth to write me back, actually. I seen him on Vice one night when I was in a hotel. It'd been a rough night, rough day in the tower. And I was like, oh shit, that's my boy Seth. Like, yeah, and it just made my night better. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't know. I guess I always say I'm a fan of you guys, because like I'm a fan of like super famous people. And to me, a fan is like, if the person I'm a fan of succeeds, you know, I succeed. You know what I mean? Like, even if I don't, I didn't do anything. They did. You know what I mean? But like, they feel better. So I mean, I feel nice better. You know what I mean? Somebody you like that makes music puts out a song, and you're like, yeah, you can tell you were feeling yourself when you wrote this, man. You can tell you were real, like, hell yeah, good for you, man. Good for you. Good for us. Good for this family. You know what I mean? Just like anytime I see anybody out here succeed, I'm like, hell yeah, man.
I talk a lot to Christian Cipollini, and he's always saying about how much I inspire him, and it's like he inspires me, and it's really weird when you got your idol, so to speak, telling you, yeah, you inspire me too, brother. And it's like, what? And like Seth said it as well to me, and it's like, oh my God, it just that because I'm still a fan. I mean, I love it. I love that passion side of it. And so are Seth, so are Casey. So I think we're all fans as much as we are up there at the top of our game, so to speak.
You guys can be the journalists, man. I'm going gonzo with the whole podcast, you know.
Yeah, I'm no
That's why I love this.
That's why
I love this.
You do great documentary, Casey. What are you talking about? Every time I see that Anastasia documentary, I'm all like, hell yeah, look at that setup. He's all set for a documentary.
Just because I'm still in it. I have to tell the research. To be a part of a video from National Crime Syndicate, the Albert Anastasia video, over 1 million hits. I mean, 1 million views. So I love that. For me, has been one of the highlights since coming out of prison. I don't know if people will get that, but to be involved in something bigger than you, to be involved with such a wonderful group of guys as well, because obviously there was yourself, Casey, Christian, Gunnar was involved, Craig was involved. I've done a part of the research with Craig, and it was just to be involved in something like that. I mean, Craig done the majority of the work, obviously, and
he did a lot of work.
Paid for the video.
A lot of paying the bills too.
I mean, I really am grabbing hold of the coattails on this one, but it's still being part of something that hit 1 million on YouTube.
Yeah, that was really cool. I was really glad that, Craig let me be a part of that. That was a lot of fun. Yeah. But like you said, I've never had, being a musician and stuff like that, the idea of 1 million people.
Plug your band.
Casey's music is your so we can keep a secret to it there. I love your tracks, Casey.
Oh,
Your
thanks,
album,
man.
your
Yeah.
album's incredible. I listen to it quite a lot, mainly because it's on one of my podcasts that I use, so I keep hearing
Hey,
it.
shut up so he can plug his band.
You know, I'm mainly a session musician, so I just play with as many people as I can. But right now, you know, there's the bands that I'm in. We haven't been playing for a year, but I do. I have something that I'm working on. The album hasn't come out yet, but it's Gangsters and Ghosts, and it's all songs I did that are about real stories from real gangsters. Jay Michael actually, yeah, Jay Michael did the artwork for it, and actually that's going to be the cover right there. I don't have a frame for it quite yet, but he did.
I will pay you a fee. Write me an opening track. No, I will. I'll buy a fee. I support local musicians. I mean, I know you live in Oregon. You're not local, but you're American, so whatever. Fuck them.
But yeah, Jay Michael did a lot of the artwork too. I don't know if you can see it back there, but he did one for pretty much most of the songs, like, you know, each of the characters. So I got a Costello, there's a Lansky one, there's a Lucky one, there's a Marcello one.
Got a Gambino one?
The Vito one. I don't have a Gambino one yet. I do want to write a song about that. It'd probably be the Lion and the Fox, be, you know, one of the lines in there. But I got an Ricardo one, and but I just, because of COVID, I was working in a studio with a friend of mine, John Neff, but you know, that kind of has been put into. But so I got my own little studio down here now, so I'm just doing it myself. So hopefully it'll be out.
Talking of working hard, Jay Michael, he makes my look like I do about 3-hour days or something. I mean, he's incredible.
He's more like when I think of a journalist or like a real historian, you know, I'm a hobbyist. If I get something wrong, sorry, I got it wrong. I don't have to answer to anybody really, but he's really doing, you know, he's really making books. He's got a real good thing going there. And, you know, he's
for me, he's the all-American hero. I mean, I love for what he does with in the Californian fires. I think he's out in Germany now serving. On tour in Germany now. He's just, he plays the big bass. He just, I don't think there is.
His wife is fucking.
Can't do anything.
No disrespect, Jay Michael. No disrespect at all. But like, dude, his wife is smoking, man.
Yeah, I got to in 2018 when I was in Vegas with Larry Henry and Gary, and we did that little mob summit. But I got to go to the the Mob Museum, and they have the little speakeasy down there, but they have a secret room down there. Like, you push on the thing and it opens up, and you can go in there. You're supposed to reserve it, but I was there with Jay Michael and Meyer Lansky. You know, we were in there just having beers, and hanging out, and I just remember thinking at the time, I'm like, you know, this is all because of Facebook. You know, like that I got to meet these guys and hang out with them. It was a treat. He was a nice guy. But like, yeah, he's the kind of guy, like him and Christian, you know, and you, David, you guys are doing like real serious journalism work and stuff. So
I'm a hobbyist, Casey. I'm the same as you.
You're a fucking journalist.
Yeah, no, I mean, you have a cause, and you're following. You're really doing a lot.
You're not half-ass writing your shit like I am. I mean, I'm not half-ass writing my comic by novel. That's why it's taking so long.
Nor does Casey.
You know.
But yeah, so that was a treat, man. That was really fun to be able to meet him and you know.
Well, I think we're all fortunate really that we've got such a great group. I mean, we although we kind of do a little bit here, do a little bit there, we are essentially a group, and it's like yourself, Casey, Seth, Ian, Rob, Larry Henry, love Larry. Unfortunately,
great.
We were looking at doing something this year in respect of a mob summit, but one over here, and obviously, but something for the future, something to look forward to.
We can do like a multi-person Zoom type deal. That'd be sweet.
Yeah, that would be cool, actually. Yeah,
we all plug into Sammy the Bull and ask him questions. Sammy, I want 10% of that idea. You know, you heard it here first.
And then we can get D'Onofrio to come in and do the cabaret.
Exactly. He's gonna charge $1,500 a head, and he will have downloaded his app and be on my show.
Oh, dude, let's go.
No, we need to get out of here.
I'm starting to get warnings, I think. So
yeah,
things are starting to change here.
Good talking to you guys. We got a little off the Costello subject, but that's all right. It's fun to just be able to
still covered him.
See you guys in person and
it's been
talk
great.
a little bit.
Yep.
But it's been great. And I've the messages I've been getting from you two guys, that's going to keep me going for another year. That will.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, that was my whole goal with the hideaway, man. I wanted mob facts with Hunter S. Thompson and Joe Rogan, if that makes any sense. And boop, you guys deliver every time, and I love it and I appreciate it. Shout out to everybody out there doing it right and professionally and not slapping it together like your boy over here. But I'm having fun and I am gonna go down for starting some of the most podcasts you can. I'm not gonna stop. I got a movie one coming out tonight that me and my other buddy are gonna do. I got Tilly Time Tuesdays, which is all about hockey fights and hockey enforcers. I don't know. I'm gonna do Hooligans Hideaway at some point. I mean, I'm gonna get into the mass murder subject, serial killers, all of them. We're gonna do all of them. I'm gonna end up fucking.
Keep it up.
Yeah.
Message me sometime after this. You know about I was gonna talk to you a little bit about microphones and some of the audio stuff that we were talking about. I mean, I don't know a ton about it, but I learned a little bit from being in studios from some of the engineers that's kind of rubbed off and stuff. So there's some little tips and stuff that you could do that aren't expensive that can really help the audio side of it and that kind of thing.
I need a phone that's not shattered. I shattered my phone in a tower a while back and I just haven't. It's Christmas time and everybody else coming before me, you know, so. But send me the shit I need, man. I had Rockville at the beginning, but as soon as my phone shattered, it's not worth a fuck. Like I had gear, but it's not worth anything right now because you plug it into my phone. I either can't hear you, you can't hear me, you know. So I have to jump into it. So that's where I'm stuck at now. So you know.
Right. Hey, well, it works.
Casey, it's good to see you again.
You too, man. You guys take care, and looking forward to hearing this conversation.
Me too.
Later.
Bye, guys.